All right. So thank you everybody for showing up to this January 9th, 2025, New Year, Thursday group, Field Notes and Legal Shield. This last Monday, I had a good discussion about creating action plans and going through the action plan library as to what we have, and also talking about how to create activities and what kind of activities you can create within an action plan. So I don't know if anybody wants to do a recap of that. Obviously, I don't want to repeat too much, but we can always discuss that. So there was also another issue as well that Bill's living, and I think everybody's going to live at some point in time, but Bill lives it at more of a pain point because he's got so many accounts. So it's like the curse of doing good work, you know what I mean? But when the I don't ever see Legal Shield changing their data, you know what I mean? Like putting it into one whatchamacallit, just like one line. I think they're always going to do it as two lines, second, like a third line, that kind of thing. And then if a person were to sign up, let's just say in benefits for ID Shield, and then 6 months later on says, "Oh, I can get the legal plan," then they'll get the legal plan, and it's going to show up later in LS Engaged or in Shield at Work, but it's going to show up as like a whole nother line. So when creating the let me open up a CRM. So we've got this wizard that we've been working on so that you guys don't have to manipulate the data and bring it into the CRM. And well, there might be some manipulation, but it's not going to be moving the names around, splitting the names, changing the dates, none of that kind of stuff, right? So that should at least reduce, I don't know, 10 different things that you would have to do just to get the data kind of ready. But I think you might have to add some of the categories such as sales cycle status, so that when you upload the data, it immediately comes in with that information, right? So you guys can see the CRM. And so we brought back this products. When we turn on the wizard and you dump your information into us, the system is going to create products for every product, because the problem we have with contacts as is this contact sheet for a contact is super huge, but in order to map all the data that comes from Shield at Work, that's why there's so many different categories, and why you can see these categories that are LA1, LA2, AU1, AU2, right? These are all the emails to those. And I'm assuming these are the beneficiaries of, these are the people who are under the, I'm trying to think,
AU is authorized user.
authorized user. LA is,
Um, Legal Shield Associate, I believe, but I wouldn't swear to it.
I don't think so, just
I don't
because,
think it is.
right?
You have
Because
the servicing associate, which would be, do you have an SA? AU is authorized user, LA, the full report.
Administrator? Could A be for administrator?
I don't think so.
I think it's like the other users that are on the account to that person that have access to it. So at the end of the day, that was all, we all just copied it. Like we really didn't kind of pay attention to like what are they going to do with it? More like if the information is going to come and it might be there, we have to, in order to map it and to get as much as the information over, we have to have a place for it. So these are all based off of the Shield at Work categories and download, right? Now, what's different is these products. So let me get to a contact so that when you upload these people, I guess we can use myself. There is information obviously for the group number. There's information for the associate number, the legal shield, or the identity shield. Sorry, the identity shield and the legal plan, the small business, BDLP. So when you do the upload with the new upload, it's going to create products. So each of the legal plan, ID shield, small business, home supplement, gun supplement, like any combination of all of these different things that they may have, you'll have the opportunity to basically create products for it, right? And the download actually does that and creates products. And so when you look at the product, this is like the form, so the transaction type, this will be imported and created on the fly once you take the download, right? So this is not something that you have to create, although you can manage the items and actually create, let's say if it didn't exist, you could create it if you need, right? So if you were somebody who sold insurance or other products, you could actually add them to the products. And then that way your business can, you can manage more than one thing, not just Legal Shield. So that is how that is, but this will come from the download, right? The product ID, I know it says associate ID, but the product ID, I think this is where it's going to be the legal plan or the ID Shield plan, right? It's going to be that number. And I think that that's where that goes. I think there's a level to, I think there's a level that comes in. There's a plan type, right? So these are all things that are going to come from the business channel, right? These are all things that come from the product line and they're going to be created as a product. So I'm just thinking, is that going to possibly maybe, right? This is also the active. So at the end of the download, it tells you if it's active or not active. And so this can also, and these also I think can be used in the action plans as well. So like for triggers and things like that. Let me, God, here we go.
Hey, Jeremy,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was thinking about what we talked about yesterday. I don't think the output data, the exported data is going to change in Shield at Work with the new one. It's how we interface with it. We're still finding some glitches in it. I'm finding glitches.
Uh-huh.
But if you want, when we get off this call, after Ross's lunch, I'll get on the phone with Ross Brokoff, who does the Shield at Work updates. And I'll just let him know that, I'm using that data and we're developing to import into a CRM just to make things easier for us. Will the output data change or is it going to be static? If it's going to be static, then it doesn't matter the changes we make in the operation of the platform as
Right.
we associates use it. All you guys care about is that the output data is static.
And that it stays the same as it is right now so that
Yeah,
I
that's
can
what I mean
log
by
in.
static, that it just stays.
Right. Because then what I'm going to do is log back in, pull a bunch of files, and then give that to the developers. However, to give you guys some understanding, is this creating additional products, right? So you'll have the contact and then you'll have, and I don't want to say unlimited products, but I think you can get up to like 12 or 11 or 15 or something like that products that you can add to one contact. And that would, and I haven't seen a person like a Legal Shield member with like more than 4 or 5 products. I don't think I've seen, but at least the system can withhold, maybe double that within products. But all of that data, so it'll come into here essentially. Now I know this is, it's not something it's going to take is the last 4 digits of the social security number. However, that information does come, but it's blank. So I'm trying to think and letting you guys know, is that because all of this information is going to come from the download. So if it's here, I'm assuming great, you guys can, you'll have a place for that data. If you don't really do anything with it, well then fine, either way. At the end of the day, it is just so that people like Bill, right, and everybody else, big or small, can just pull Shield at Work data, pick whether if it's a group or whether if it's the LS engaged, right? Because there's a couple of files and the wizard is tailored to each one of your guys' downloads. And then you essentially pick it, put the file over, and it does its magic. So is that too much? Because that's going to change a little bit for some people now. So if people like for Bill, where you have all your data uploaded, I'm going to see and speak to the developers like how it affects people with that already have data uploaded, uploading this new data because it may upload, some accounts may have it in products, others, let's say you haven't done an update, but at some point you are going to do an update. And then so like how that's going to affect action plans and everything like that. That's kind of like my next step because I don't obviously want to do this when then you have action plans that are looking at this data and not looking at this, but just maybe to hear your thoughts on product, Does that seem like it's going to muck stuff up for you guys, or do you feel that that's going to be a beneficial kind of thing because now you guys can have literally all the products there for the person. They can either be active or not active. What are your thoughts on that? I know
Hey,
Kathy
Jeremy,
came
it's
in.
Deborah.
Hey, Deb.
So I'm sorry I jumped on this late. So if I'm asking
You're good.
questions have already been asked, but as I'm seeing it, this complicates my process because I put all of my um, plans for each of my members
Mhm.
in spheres. Is it spheres? I think it's spheres.
So now is that how
I
you
like
do is
that.
that how you do triggering, or is that how you trigger action plans,
Yes.
or is
Yes.
that just for categorizing and well,
All of
okay,
the above.
all of the above. So we might have to switch some triggers over, right? Which I'm always here to, help you with the transition. So don't think that I'm going to leave you alone in the sense of, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of changes and then, go figure it out. That's a little bit of why I'm now thinking about this because I want to kind of now with the new year and then speaking with Bill and Bill's kind of like, I don't think this data is going to change. And so if it's not going to change, I don't want to sit here and just twiddle my thumbs and wait for Legal Shield because then I think I could be waiting until, half of the year. And
We may wait a lot longer than that.
well, good thing I gave it only 6 months. I'm trying to be optimistic, but yes, we most likely will be here a lot longer, waiting for things to change when they're not going to change. And I'm just kicking it around and might even if I have to go to the developers and say, hey, if we have to change something, we're going to change it just in case they do something and it starts affecting us. Like we're just going to have to juck and jive. You know what I mean? And so, but I do want to kind of maybe get this rolled out because there is there is no I guess the only good thing is like the people with the less accounts, right? They're the ones that will have to do all these movements less, right? Because people like Bill, who's got hundreds, he's going to be uploading new stuff. Group, how many times do you upload data? Like, got to be at least once or twice a week, if not more, right? And you said you were behind, so I bet you got a huge workload that you need to kind of get up to date, right? So I feel
Yeah,
I
no,
feel for
I've
you.
got right now about 50 companies have to be uploaded.
See, so
And I'm in a similar boat, and my guess is Alicia's probably got 2 or 3 times that.
there you go. There you go. And and Bill was also speaking about having his son develop something similar to what Cassie went and developed, which is something where she can do for updating and uploading accounts. Am I correct, Cassie, where you just take Shield at work, you take the file that you get out of Fieldnotes, you put it into an Excel, you hit the magic button, and it basically formats everything, getting you a file ready to go for Fieldnotes.
Yeah, but it's very complex, and it was a bitch to develop, and it's not easy to use. So
Damn. So more of the reason why I want to get this whatchamacallit, this wizard kind of at least working, you know, trying to see. But so yeah, so as long as so I guess with Deborah, you're saying it's going to so you've got some things. So I guess with having that set up, I'll have to maybe take a look at your situation and kind of analyze it. So if we do change something, like what is it that you would have to do to kind of get yourself back to normal, right? But so thank you for bringing that up. I'll have to use your account as a test case. But what it's about is just taking your guys' data, little to involvement with having to manipulate it, and then getting it into the CRM. And then it also goes for getting new accounts in and also updating products and things like that, right? So
I
that's
think
something.
I think getting new accounts in has been manageable. The challenge to me always seems to be more on the updating accounts.
Yeah.
Updating, yeah. Well, with that, um, I have so the way that the system would be before is it looks for the name and the phone number and the email as definitive like parameters to like identify the people. So I've changed that to start to look at the product ID numbers, because those are unique for every customer. And if it can find a legal plan and pull up the contact, but the email's changed, right? That's what you guys want to, if the phone numbers change, that's what I'm assuming you guys would want to update, right? So now you have
Correct.
good data for these people. So that's something that the system is going to detect, is the legal plan, the ID plan, like the numbers that they have to then find the contact. Then figure out, is all of the personal data still the same? If so, nothing changes, right? And then if it's a product that's no longer with the person, like it's now, so how would that, so when you get it, is it just
So
missing the
if they
line, or is it, does it say that it's
dropped an
canceled?
identity theft, or if they added an ID shield or something. So that's what we typically will see as far as a change. Either they're
Is
going
the
to
adding of
upgrade
the
or
product.
downgrade coverage.
Now, when you guys do the pre-cancel, is that where you guys, is that something you guys do every Wednesday, where you take the list and you go find the products and then you just cancel them or not make them active, is what I would assume? Or do you, and then is that where you guys put that person into a pre-cancel campaign talking about specifically that product?
That's what I do, Jeremy. If I get a pre-cancel on a Wednesday, I immediately put them into, categorize them as member and pre-cancel, and it triggers an action plan that starts dripping on them.
So I'll have to kind of look at that. Thank you for bringing that up, because
You might want to talk to Kathy Lucas on how she does that. Because I don't know how she manages that, if she manages it off of the pre-cancel list, or if there's something in the process when she updates the account.
Okay.
So it's getting at the same data. She just may get at it a different way. That's what I'd be curious to know, how she does that.
And what's unfortunate is you've got, so I know with the Shield at Work, you can pull just active stuff or you can pull everything, right? So I don't know if, in order to get the benefit of that, to see what plans have dropped and what hasn't, you guys just pull everything. But when I began to do this little project, I was only going after active stuff, wasn't pulling the full to kind of see what comes, because there's pending and then there's canceled and then there's active data, right? There's those three categories. What is the pending stuff? Is that somebody who's thinking about enrolling into the product or hasn't yet enrolled to the
Well,
product?
they might have an upcoming start date. Sorry.
What was that, Kenzie? Go, Bill.
They may have an upcoming start date, like what we see many times. Midway through the month is they'll have a start date on the first of the next month. They'll stay pending till then. Or also, if they're a reinstatement, they usually process at the end of the month. So they go into pending status.
And it would be good to get those people into the CRM for some shape or form.
What I've usually done is if it's a start date on the first, I'm not going to do 2 uploads. I'm not going to do an upload midway through the month and then another one after the first. I just won't do that company till after the first. So everybody's active, just so I do it once. I don't have to deal with it twice. And that's when they get it. If they're a mid-month start date, then I just run the upload usually about a day or two after their start date to make sure everybody's in.
Do you think it would be good just to ignore the pending, because it's going to come, and then that way it only deals with canceled and active?
I mean, ask Cassie what she thinks, but to me, if it loads them as a pending, and then I'd have to keep track of who was pending, who wasn't, or I'd have to do the upload now and then remember to redo this upload, in 12 days. I'd rather just wait till after the first of next month and just do it once and be done with it.
I'm exactly the same way, Bill.
Yeah, and then as far as the canceled members, I don't care to have. I'm not worried about updating that. I do understand that if they're in my system and they cancel, they're still going to show active in my system. And in the future, if they get an email from me, and I don't know, that might trigger them to come back on and go, you know what, I didn't think of that. Maybe I'll re-get this, or maybe bring up, I'm hoping they'll contact me and say, look, I'm no longer with them. I don't know why I'm getting the email. I wish our company offered it.
I have heard people actually get prospects to different groups and companies
Right.
from that alone, from just what you just explained. That's how she actually gets referrals to other companies, is people moving and going to other places and saying, well, hey, this company doesn't have it. And then, hey, by the way, here's the HR person. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's like
Because I can
nice.
ask who's your HR director and I can call them and I can say, my name's Bill Bukovich from LegalShield. Jeremy, I don't know if you've heard of us. The reason I was calling you is some of your employees have wished that they had this type of benefit there. Could I tell you about it?
Exactly.
And
Get your
make
foot
it
in the door.
available to
And,
them.
yeah,
No out-of-pocket cost to your company. And it
right.
opens that conversation. What my people are asking about, I should at least know what it is. Well, now it
Exactly.
opens the door for me to have a talk with them, and who knows what it'll lead to. If nothing else, it could just lead to a membership.
Right.
However, it could lead to a new group. I love it when an HR director leaves one of my companies and goes to a new company.
Exactly. Because they usually end up wanting to
Amen.
take, yeah. No, no. Okay. So, well, so it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I guess is how you say if somebody gets an email, but to detect it and then to change the status of it and then have a pre-cancel campaign, that's not something that you worry about, right, Bill, or manage too much.
I'll be doing more on the pre-cancel later. Just
Okay.
right now, when I took all this on, it was getting it set up for when I was on Zoho
Right.
and trying to get everything going. Then we came into fourth quarter and I've just been overloaded. But as I build into it,
Right.
I want to build this into a full service, literally a full service platform.
And
Bring my
that's what I'm
pre-cancel.
saying, Jeremy, Kathy Lucas would be your best bet on the managing the pre-cancel, because I think she's the furthest out in front on actually doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to do it in Zoho all the time. And I used to get the email of all the pre-cancels, even when they stopped it. I guess they didn't take me off that list.
Mhm.
So I would just take that and I would load it up when I was in Zoho and I would send it to them all the time. But I just haven't transferred it over here yet. So if
Gotcha.
Kathy's doing it, she's the one that's using your system and doing it. And I agree with Cassie. We need to see
Maker.
who's having success with it and
And
duplicate
how they're
that.
doing it. Well, most importantly, how they're doing it, and then if what we're doing with this new upload, how can it help you guys take this information in, have it either affect the contact by canceling or at making it active, because there's fields for it, right? But I don't want it to be a micromanaged little thing that you guys have to go through, an account with 500 people, 400 people, and start to find the cancels and the actives and all of that. I just want it to be done from the upload, right?
Right. And as
Essentially.
you know, I've changed a lot of those fields anyways, because when I do stuff with my brokers, I have a different welcome email that goes out for broker groups
Right.
because they may have only dealt with that broker and didn't deal with me. But since I've got the system in place, I tell my broker, I'll get that email out for you because I'll pull the data. And at the bottom of the email, it'll say emails from Bill Bukovich working with XYZ Insurance Services. And then they
Right.
go, oh, and I look like an extension of their office, and they like that. So
Absolutely.
I've changed some of the fields myself so I can put in there that this is XYZ Insurance Service, this is so and so, this is so and so. And that way those are all those action plans and those emails are pre-done. So everything's custom to the person who gets it and the person who sold it being the broker. So I can build that relationship with the broker.
Right. 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 So yeah, I got some work with this. That's for sure. But I definitely wanted to get started back with it, because if we don't, we'll be just sitting here twiddling our thumbs, and you guys are going to be stuck making, you know, micromanaging all of these different types of changes. And I could see how that could get crazy. You know what I mean? So I will have a conversation with Kathy to see what's the best, well, how she's doing it, and see if she has any insight to how this upload may affect, and then get with the developers. And so this is probably something that I'm going to be living for the next couple of months so that we can get it kind of rolled out, tested, and see what kind of impact it's going to have. So I'm pretty sure I have a couple of people who I might want to, do some demos with, just to see how the impact is, because like if it works good with a couple of people, I'm pretty sure it's going to work good for everybody else and stuff like that. But yeah, just something I wanted to bring up. If you guys wanted to talk about action plans and go over some some concept of action plans. Feel free to discuss that if I've burned a hole in your guys' brains already with what's going to come down with this new upload. That's also is okay as well. Now, if you also had anything else that you guys wanted to discuss, is there anything that you guys got for this for January, for February, for these months coming in? Is there any kind of special event that you guys are preparing for, content wise, or I don't know,
I think
anything?
I think we're all real focused on getting all of our group accounts uploaded, caught up, cleaned up, and kind of catching up from the end of Q4 because there's just so much volume on the solution side that happens in Q4. And I mean, I'm just watching the numbers in the first, 10 days of the month and looking at the volume that's still coming through. People are obviously still getting caught up on Q4.
Okay. Well, and that goes for anybody if you guys are having any issues, I would love to understand what your challenges are going through like right now so that I can obviously put them into perspective if what we're trying to develop has anything to do with what you guys have to do, because updating data and getting data in, it's just a pain in the ass, unfortunately. And that goes like with any CRM, because I guess out of all the CRMs, yes, we're the one that kind of like caters to your guys' headaches. But when discussing with Bill, uploading some lead, he had what? I think it was like maybe 75, 50. And he forgot that he had to migrate them all into one line. He forgot that he had to do a handful of steps. And so when he did it, that already adds like another 4 to 5 minutes to doing one group. And for somebody that has 50 groups to get up to date with, right? Spending 10 minutes on just one, multiply that by 10, we're looking already, at a lot of time. So 50 accounts literally could take him, 2 to 3 days of just sitting doing office work, which I know you guys do a little bit of work in the house, also have to be out on the go. Like it's not always I can sit here 10 hours in front of my computer kind of the thing. You know what I mean? So, well, I definitely thank you guys for expressing some of the issues that you got to deal with. And I don't know, is there anything that you guys wanted to discuss or had any questions for me in general, or you'd like to discuss in this platform?
Jeremy, this is Chip. Can I make a suggestion?
Chip,
Is it
tell me, sir.
possible? Is it possible that you could set up field notes so that every field updates?
Say that again.
I'm testing something right now with one contact, but can you when that information changes in Shield at Work, that like I say, it'll identify it by the identification number, but they'll update every field. If it's different, it'll update every field in field notes.
So the
Whatever
trick
data changes in Shield at Work.
as long as it's mapped and it has the ID to the contact, if you make changes to any of the cells, it'll completely change, right? And then for everybody who doesn't know, if you are doing an update, it's best to pull the file out of Fieldnotes. Now, this is where it becomes a little time consuming, right? But if you're doing it for like a handful of people, then obviously it's not that too time consuming. But when doing a group of 300, this is where the problem, comes in. So you pull Fieldnotes. So you either find the group or you find the group of contacts, right? So you do some way filter it so that you have your group. Then you do a download of that data. So that would essentially be picking a couple of accounts. Let's say these are the ones, and then downloading and using all columns and then doing the download so that when you do get this download, right?
That's the old information. I'm talking about the new information that changes from
Exactly.
LegalShield.
So this is the thing. You got to take this file and either do like a VLOOKUP or some type of lookup that the old data and basically looks for it here and says, oh, this has changed. But if you don't download this full file with the ID number and have all of these, let's say, fields mapped, right? Let's say this field had something here in your preferred communication style. Let's say it had something here, but you just deleted the column. It would clear it. It would say like, oh, okay, so that's a 0. There's no information for that. So that's what you want to be careful about, is either coming to here and downloading just the visible columns only, and then doing the update. And let's say in this visible columns, I don't have referral source, any of the spheres. If you went and pulled this file and then made up, it'll clear everything and then just update this info. So you really want to be careful with doing that, because that, if you do it for like, I had a real estate agent do it for like 200 people, and then I had to go into 200 accounts and figure out what was the data that she wiped clean and then get it back in. And there was, the only way to go through that was manually, right? So
Jeremy, why don't you walk through the whole process? So you download all columns from Fieldnotes.
and you're
That's
given
the starting point.
and you're given this file. So these are the people that I've selected. These are all columns, so you can see that it goes all
Way over there.
Yeah, it gives you absolutely everything that you have. So even if you did make changes to any of these, it will reflect that. But it will give you all of the columns. So if you just said, I don't need none of these, it will actually zero out that information that is in there. So you want to be careful with doing something like that, because that is where that could be an issue, especially if you didn't pick up on spheres, or if you didn't pick up on plans chosen or something like that, it would clear out those fields. And I'm assuming that's not what you wanted to do, right? So the trick with that is downloading this file, making the changes from here from your other file, whether if it's manual or using some type of lookup feature where you compare one file to another using either first name, last name, phone number. I wouldn't necessarily, because those are the things that could change, right? The name, I'm going to assume, is still going to be the same. But
Can't Fieldnotes find that? Can't Fieldnotes build that into the system so that it can sense if anything has changed and just go ahead and update it?
Well, that is what we're trying to do with the upload, right? With the upload wizard, sorry, not lizard. And what it's gonna be using is the
Okay, you talked about your
associate
upload wizard. You're talking about your upload wizard, Jeremy. Why can't you set up so that each person could put their own template into what fields they want put in there? I think you're familiar with Cytolink. You have ability to look at the templates that are available in Cytolink. You have my login. You can check on that and see. They take anything you give them. In fact, I've taken from Fieldnotes and put it back into Cytolink. And I have a huge define your file format here, of which there's every single field that's in Fieldnotes. It just goes on forever until you get down to the 00, the emails sent and the emails received. So you get all the way down there. But it defined your file format. And then each go over on the right hand side, there's a choose the box you want to put that in. And once you do that, it'll save your template for you. At the bottom, it says use the template, choose it, you can name it, you could always go back there again. So every download that you get from Field at Work or Shield at Work,
mm-hmm.
whatever changes, you go ahead and put that in on the same templates into your system, how you set it up to design it, where you wanted it to go into. And that is a savable template that's right there to be able to put the same thing in each time. The only thing you're talking about is being able to change it. As long as Fieldnotes will sense the difference in it and change whatever's changed, then it'll work. But Fieldnotes has to be the one to know, okay, so you say it's an ID number. So the ID number won't change. So you check that ID number and it should see anything in there that has changed, update it. There's got to be a way they can write that.
I feel what you're saying in regards to if we can, but knowing the company, right, and some of the limitations that we have, it does boil down to developing bandwidth, right? And there is some projects that I've obviously, I want to create a whole new world with this thing, and they're like, we can't do that. Not only do we not have the workforce or the developers to do it, it would take for them man hours that they don't have and they can't allocate to it, right? But
I wonder if what Chip's saying, if that would be a shortcut to getting a wizard for us without having to use the developer's bandwidth.
Yeah, exactly.
But just
once they set that up, that template like there is in Cytolink, you define your own file format and you put whatever you want in and you save it.
So what happens is it's the action plans. Remember, so that contact form is linked to a whole bunch of other parts of the system that everything has to be the same. And the system, I know for a fact, won't do you different to Kathy different to Cassie or Bill. Everybody can't have their own little custom thing. Like everybody has to basically utilize the same kind of format, and everybody, it's a kind of cookie cutter thing. However, there is some
Yeah, but
custom.
doesn't the action plan take it from that field anyway? So
It
whatever's in
does.
that field, if the action plan, that's a separate part of it. So
I
whatever the
I
action plan is, it's
I
going to
get what
say,
you're
where is that
saying.
field? What do I need to do with that field? It
I
goes to this
I
field, and
I understand what you're saying, Chip, but that's where the developers have already told me that that's not going to fly based on the amount of man hours that it would take for them to develop that kind of system, right?
okay,
So
okay,
so for the way that our system works, that's that's not stagnant, but that's static, right? That is the way that it is. What it does pick up onto is whether if you've changed these, it will pick up to that, but the same purpose of that category is still going to stay the same. Whether the name is different is understood, but not necessarily maybe the function or kind of how you want just our system to pick up to what data you put into it, maybe kind of like how Cytolink is. And so that's where, trust me, if I could, and I think I had said something to them, and this is where we have to. That's why I'm so curious. I'm so precautious with waiting to get this data, and if it's going to change, because it will cause the developers have to go back into the wizard and fix whatever they changed on their end, and then come here. And so I would rather, Chip, when I get a little bit closer, I've got already like a couple of people that I'm gonna probably consult with and do little demos with, just them specifically to
okay.
kind of, so
It's
most
just an
likely
idea.
I'll loop you in, and if you can express your thoughts and that kind of stuff, and maybe I'll use your account as like a little bit of a demo so we can see in how many of these cases we're going to affect, because I would like the system to work for your style, Bill's style, Cassie, Kathy, but I'm limited to developing power, right? So,
I understand.
but I'll take everybody's idea. You know what I mean? It's not like I want to shut down everybody, but I do have some limitations. Go ahead, Bill.
So when we're talking about updates and changes,
Uh-huh.
that's not a huge issue with me because a lot of the changes I make them one off. I manually do it
Okay.
because a lot of times I do it at enrollment. I always have a laptop set up if I'm sitting after I present and I'm
Hmm.
sitting somewhere. And if they have a change, I encourage them to come and talk to me because when they come over, people see action there at the table and then they're coming over to ask questions, bring in apps. It drives more business. And I'll just go in right there. And I've already got Shield at Work pulled up and I'll make their changes and they're ecstatic. Oh, it's done right away. That was easy. Just
Hmm.
like Aflac and the other people do it. So the only thing that would be really an update that I'm doing is the pre-cancels, which I don't have a ton of them. I don't have a ton of cancellations most of the time. And I'll even go in or have someone go in and put those in manually. My biggest thing, and that's what I'm concerned about, is the inputting new members, the enrollments to get the welcome emails started, to get all of that going. That's my biggest thing. A lot of the changes I just do them manually because it would take me just as long to pull report format and do an upload, considering I might have two from one group. So why
Okay.
bring down the whole group for two people? I just go in and the time it takes me to do it, I just put those two in real quick.
Fair
Then,
enough.
okay, Bill, so you let me walk through the process with you and understand the next step. So, excuse me. Just getting over COVID again. Um,
We're
so
good.
so you do the entry and Shield at Work. I get that. No big deal. Obviously, the most efficient way to do that just directly in the system. Usually it's a handful of things. No problem. So I don't usually do anything in Shield at Work with that separate or in Field Notes with that separately because what I'm thinking in my brain is when the open enrollment file comes in for that group, we're going to have other adds, deletes, upgrades, downgrades, whatever, right? So whatever changes I've made on phone numbers, email addresses, etc., will just be swept from Shield at Work into Fieldnotes when I do the mass upload on that group.
And if it's going to upload it, then yes, that can do it. And you don't have to worry about field notes at all. It should hopefully see the change in email, or she got married and hyphenated the last name or something like that.
Right.
Hopefully you're right. It should see that and do it. But if it doesn't, I generally don't have a lot of changes with people at an enrollment. I mean, add-ons, deletions, things like that. Hey, you know what? I no longer want the identity theft protection for whatever reason. I've gotten over arguing with them and going through all of that. So those changes it should make. But if I just have two people, I'll do it in Shield at Work right in front of them because they're happy. And then I just have a piece of paper, I write their name down. And then when I come home or I stop for lunch or whatever, I can just pull it up and do it in field notes in 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Jump into the CRM and go here and, put a stop to their, keep in mind, I'm still used to the old, when I was in Zoho, there was one button you would click that says opt out of emails. And I would just do that if I was completely opting them out.
We've got that button.
Yeah. So I would just do that. So it's just go in, do a quick search for their name, click the button, go to the next one, search for the name, click the button, done. Or if I'm changing an email address or whatever, then I would just go do it manually. If I had a ton of them, I absolutely would do the upload.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking it'll be swept over in the bigger upload anyway. So
correct.
Right. At the first of the month when, everybody goes active.
Yeah.
Then I pull the entire active, and that's really only all I pull. I don't pull the full report, the canceled members and active, because if they're canceled, I don't care, and I'll be on it. Like I said before, is if they stay active and get an email in the future, if they complain to me, I'll opt them out. But if they hopefully lead to something else.
Or they can unsubscribe themselves, right? And then that does that. In our system, it does it for you. So if they unsubscribe from the email, right? If they see that, then it do not email them in our system, and then it's not something that you have to. However, I've had people get my emails and still say opt me out. Like they still send that message, separately. So I end up having to go in, check, and make sure it's done, because I don't want somebody coming back to me saying, "Oh, you continuing to email me," and then get real pissed off, and then I don't have, not a happy customer, but somebody that I could possibly maybe.
Yeah, if they cancel and I just tell them sorry, it was an oversight on my part. I don't tell them it was a purposeful oversight.
Right. It's a boo-boo.
Didn't just take them off.
Yeah, no. If you're definitely like, if you take that into consideration, say yes, I apologize. Didn't mean that to go out. People usually don't, get irate. However, I have had customers of real estate agents that almost walked themselves into a legal battle because when they did an upload, they re-upload the person's contact information. And then so it was like a whole new contact. And I don't know if it was done manually, because manually it didn't detect the dupe. And then they got another email, and that's when they were like, we're talking to our lawyers. And that's where they're like, well, how did this happen? And then we could see that it was from a download they did from a while ago. And so that's how, of course, if you have two contacts in there, one's do not call and the other one is, the system didn't know that it had the two accounts. And so it blocked one, but it sent the other. And that is, so it's something that, you definitely want to not piss people off. And, if it could hurt your business, then definitely not do that. But
right.
All right. Well, I mean, I think I've got plenty of food on my plate that I have to, plan for with this wizard upload. So if you guys get any emails from me on the side about some insight and some stuff, I definitely would thank you for any insight that you might have. And I definitely thank you guys for kicking the can with me on this call. And then, so yeah, I guess we can leave that there. And I guess
appreciate your help, Jeremy. We'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. No.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, bye.
All righty. Ciao, everybody.